All right, let's get to Bernard J. Mickless. You see his great work here at STL Sports Central at stlsportscentral.com. You see his videos here on YouTube, and he joins us every Friday.
Hey.
Hello, Bernard.
Hey, Brooke. Hello, Randy. I didn't realize I realized you didn't have your distinguished co-host back. Outstanding. Great to see you.
It's great to have Brooke back. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Getting ready for another great weekend. A lot of great college football. Illinois at Indiana, South Carolina at Mizzou. Only the fourth Saturday night game at Faroe Field since they joined the SEC. That is going to be one hell of a party. And Mizzou will continue to ascend in the polls. I'm not sure what Indiana. I'm not sure if I think the Illini will pull it out because they're tough. But that should be a great game too.
It should be great. I think, Bernie, one of the things about Mizzou for tomorrow is that this could be a national coming out party for Bo Pribula. Now, he's playing against by far the best defense he'll have played against so far this season. But if he plays the way that he's capable of playing, and you gave the statistics, I think it was last week from Pro Football Focus, they regarded him as the number one quarterback in the country. If he plays to that level, I would think that could go a long way towards establishing Pribula and Mizzou as a factor for the rest of the season.
I do too. And Pribula, there is definitely some buzz around him. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, concerning SEC football, from all different parts of the SEC. And they're all buzzing about Mizzou, and they're all buzzing about Pribula, and they're all buzzing about Ahmad Hardy, and they're all buzzing about how terrific Mizzou's front seven is, and they're all buzzing about how well Eli Drinkwitz does in the transfer portal, and how he just restocks. They lose players to the NFL or to the portal, and he's got ready-made replacements, ready to go. Like there's no drop off, and that's why they've been really one of the short list of the best teams in college football since the start of the 2023 season. And I was. Randy, to your point about Pribula, and I was trying to find the number, but I can't find it. And I did it. It's in the video I did yesterday. But it's funny to look at the Pro Football Focus, and they do a great job with college football. It's really funny to look at the Pro Football Focus, the best quarterback grades so far among Power 4 conference teams plus Notre Dame. And Pribula is second in Power 4. And the reason why he transferred to Mizzou is because they had Drew Allar coming back, right? Mm-hmm. And Drew Allar's like 43rd or something. I mean, it's like, and I said in my video yesterday, which is still there, and I hope people look at it because I got a lot of good stuff in there about how prominent Mizzou really is. I said, I wonder how I'd like to visit like one of those Penn State fan forums right now and wonder if anyone's grousing about, well, we went with the wrong quarterback. We let the best quarterback get away. I doubt it, but you never know.
I doubt it too, because we all know how those forums go, Bernie.
Right.
People get so upset about that stuff. I wanted to go back to the Cardinals real quick because we were discussing this. It's not known yet if John MOZELIAK will be honored this weekend, end of the MOZELIAK era. Of course, a lot of people are going to have more of the recency bias where what we've seen in recent years, and especially the struggle this season, will be more in the forefront of how people might remember MOZELIAK. But how do you think that MOZELIAK should be honored and remembered by the fans?
He should be applauded. I mean, I don't hesitate to say that. And I'm about to record a video on this whole thing, and I went through his history and where I come from this. The last 3 years have been very disappointing. Cardinals ranked 22nd in winning percentage over that time, and they're going to miss the playoffs for the third consecutive year, and that's beneath their standards. We all know that, and we've all criticized, we've all complained, we've all hollered, we've all blamed MOZELIAK. I mean, it's not like he hasn't been, taken to the woodshed, so to speak. But there's a time and a place for that. And I know that we in the media and fans have done a lot of criticizing of John MOZELIAK, and it's justified. I get it. I totally get it because I've done a lot of it myself. But there's a time and a place for that. But there's also a time and a place for recognizing the magnitude of his career with the Cardinals, which overall body of work has been exceptional. The irony here is that, the Cardinals are about to enter a rebuild, and trust me, it will be a rebuild. Okay. They're already in it. They just didn't handle this year the proper way. They could have got a better start on it. But the funny thing it's like, people are saying, oh, what kind of rebuild? We haven't been through this before. How long is it going to take? I mean, what are they going to do? Like, what's the plan? But, and I get all that too, all the anxiety, but think about this for a minute. Isn't that kind of an indirect roundabout tribute to John Mozeliak and Bill DeWitt Jr.? Don't forget that John Mozeliak was Walt Jocketty's chief lieutenant before Walt was sacked, and then John moved into the big chair. But he was a very valuable assistant to Walt Jocketty, among other things. He was the director of the draft when they drafted Pujols and Molina, John Mozeliak. So anyway, but I don't think fans realize that they're actually giving a great compliment to ownership, but John Mozeliak when they're like, well, what is this rebuilding? I mean, what does that mean? What do we do? Because you haven't had to worry about a rebuild for 30 years since Bill DeWitt's taken over the team. This is the first time that the word rebuild's ever even come up, which tells me, despite the recent times that have been disappointing, the Cardinals and their fans have had a great run under John Mozeliak, and I got the numbers to back it up. It's pretty amazing when you go through it. And listen, here's how I look at it in terms of, like, I think people ought to applaud Mozeliak. Number one, this has always been a classy baseball town. Other players say it, managers say it, other teams say it, national broadcasters and writers say it. Well, show the class again. Just remind people this is still a really classy baseball town, and the way to do that is to say, look, man, we all got mad at you here, but you're leaving, and we really had a great run of baseball at the highest level, with you making substantial contributions for that to even happen. And what he did in 2011 is still remarkable to me. And then what he did pivoting to get Carlos Beltran after Pujols left, that kind of stuff's remarkable to me. And so I'd hate to see, people around the country, and by the way, I'm not saying they're right, but people around the country, including media, they're taking shots at St. Louis. One of my friends in the media wrote something like, well, Cardinals fans, he says, oh, that's right, I forgot, they don't have any fans. There's been a lot of digs like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, man, if Cardinals fans boo John Mozeliak, it'll be really against everything they've stood for a long time, of being not only the best fans in baseball, but the classiest. That would be a real unfortunate development. Times like this is when you need to show your class. And this guy did so many great things before things turned sour that to put that aside as if that doesn't matter, absolutely preposterous. I think St. Louis is better than that. I really do.
Hey, Bernie, we talked earlier about the talent level that the Cardinals are experiencing right now and experiencing. I remember that interview that you did with Boog Shambi a long time ago when you guys were talking about dudes. And the Cardinals are one of the few teams in the National League that really doesn't have a dude, aren't they?
No.
The Marlins don't. We were talking about the Rockies. Actually, Mickey Moniak has kind of turned into a dude. And the Marlins have Alcantara. I don't think the Cardinals have a single dominant player on their roster. And I think they're the only team in the National League that doesn't.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, and part of the problem with that, there's like a related problem to that. I think you and I have talked about this, Randy, at least in brief, in passing. The secondary problem, because you're right, they don't have a dude. They have some good players, and they have a good supporting cast. But as I was talking to someone about this, recently, who said, the Cardinals actually, if you look at their lineup, they've got guys you'd be happy to have in your lineup, but he said they don't have an aircraft carrier.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a weapon of mass destruction. So you look at you know, like I'm always puzzled why, for example, so many Cardinals fans like constantly rip Wilson Contreras. Oh, he's not a cleanup hitter. Well, why are you blaming him for that?
Yeah, he's our cleanup hitter.
He's not supposed to be a cleanup hitter. They don't have one, and he's doing the best he can. And actually, his numbers have been fine. So, so what happens was because they don't have a dude. Absolutely right, they do not. We then collectively overrate players that they do have. Does that make sense? We do, because there's a void, there's a star void, and so we elevate. And don't get me wrong, I'm saying these are good players, but we turn them into something bigger because there's no true star here. So I'm talking about we elevate Alec Burleson perhaps above where he should be when we're looking at it big picture. Same with Brendan Donovan, right?
Sonny Gray.
And Sonny, oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And that's a problem too, because, you know, people will talk about, well, they got to sign this guy to a long-term contract. And I'm like, well, tap the brakes here now. They did that with a young Albert Pujols, and they did that with a young Adam Wainwright, but I don't see a Pujols or a Wainwright around here. You got to be careful about long-term contract extensions. You know, you got to be sure the guy is going to be a big star for you for a long time before you do that.
We'll see if my mic is my mic working? Oh, my mic's
I hear
working.
you. I hear you.
There we go. I know that there for some reason they were saying on YouTube they couldn't hear me, so we got it fixed. So now it's working. All right. Kind of playing to that, you know, not to put the cart before the horse, but I think a lot of people are interested to see how the Bloom era starts. If you're Chaim Bloom, what is first on your list with the Cardinals and what he's looking to start this rebuild with? Is it trying to figure out maybe pitching wise if they need to bring in another pitcher, or is it just working on something within the organization? Like, is Wilson Contreras going to move? I mean, what do you think is going to be the first task, number one, for Chaim Bloom?
Well, the first task is he's going to have to speak to the fans through the media at that first news conference. And I know he has spent a lot of time basically sharpening his message. He's been preparing for it. I think he knows what he must say. So he's going to have to, the first job he has, he's going to have to step before the mics and look into the cameras and promise to Cardinals fans that he will always tell the truth, and he will not try to mislead them, and he will not try to do head fakes like, oh, we still think we can contend, you know, when there's nothing in the immediate future about them really believing they'll be a contender for something other than maybe the third or the fourth wild card, because they're going to be adding one, you know, in a season or two. But what Cardinals fans may not like what Chaim Bloom's plan is, and his plan is to rebuild, and it's not going to be a fast rebuild. It's going to be methodical, and they're not going to derail their own rebuild by, you know, spending money just to spend money and to just say, see, we're doing something. This is all about cultivating as much young talent as possible, and they're already off to a great start thanks to the people that he brought in to help him with rebuilding the minor league and player development system. But you know, Chaim Bloom has to be straight with the fans. And even here's what I mean by that. Even if he comes out and he tells them exactly what the plan is, and he asks for their patience and he asks for their help and their support, and because the Cardinals will come out better because of it, even though it's going to require some patience. And as long as he lets the fans know that he understands that it won't be easy for them, it won't be easy for him. But I think even the fans, you know, people that are even remotely reasonable, if he comes out and speaks the truth and is completely transparent and honest about where this is headed, I would think a good number of fans would say, you know what, I don't like this, but I give the guy credit. He's telling me the truth. He's not trying to hustle me. You know, he's not trying to say, we think we can contend. At least the guy's telling me the truth. He's showing me respect. That's the first thing he's got to do. Other than that, I mean, I expect him to trade, you know, at least two guys. I think Brendan Donovan's the most likely candidate. I think Lars Nootbaar is definitely a candidate, although Lars Nootbaar didn't help him because he had a terrible year. But he's a StatCast darling, so there's front offices will look at that and get excited about his StatCast stuff. One person told me, though, that they had high hopes of getting a really good return for Nootbaar. Like in a fantasy land, they thought at one point maybe Nootbaar would excite other teams enough to where you could get a young major league ready starting pitcher. Now it's going to be, well, we don't think we can get that for him, but we do think we can get a pitcher that's in Double-A somewhere that everybody loves and thinks will be great. And they're not going to settle and get a bunch of pieces of junk for him. They're going to have a pretty high standard about what they expect. But I also think, Donovan would command the most, which why it makes the most sense to trade him. There is no question about that. A player who can play 4 or 5 positions really well. If you need him to be a grinder and draw walks and get on base at a high level, he'll do that. He's got some power. He's a great gamer. He's a great guy in the clubhouse. But the Cardinals, he'll also be 29 years old next season, and the Cardinals are not going to sign him to a long-term contract, and he'll walk as a free agent. So there's just no point in letting it play out that way. He's at really good value right now, and if you're in a rebuild, which they are, he's the type of guy you have to move along. It's just being pragmatic.
Hey, Bernie, let's switch off a little bit. If you gave me the choice of the 4 best pitchers of this era, Scherzer, Verlander, Greinke, Kershaw, I'm going to take the guy who, despite his troubles in the postseason, I'm going to take the guy who announced his retirement yesterday. I think you can make a great case for Clayton Kershaw, not only being the best pitcher of his era, but being one of the top half dozen of all time.
I totally agree with you. Listen, we all know that there's some holes in the postseason resume, but that's true of a lot of great players through history. But the key to Kershaw has been his year out, year in, excellence in the regular season is being a guy that just immense value to the Dodgers and a great teammate and a smart guy and a prideful guy who works really hard to be at his best at all time. And I don't believe in, dinging a guy because the postseason record might not be up to what we think it should be. That's just the way it goes. It's baseball. I mean, this is not some choke artist or anything like that. He's also won some big games in the postseason too, but man, what a great enduring talent he's been on the mound for the Dodgers. But all those guys are excellent. The ones you mentioned, There's no question about it. And maybe I'm a little partial to Max Scherzer for obvious reasons, but no, I couldn't deny Kershaw that title. Like you, I feel the same way.
And think about in this era of baseball, pitching 18 years and having a 2.5 earned run average.
I know,
over
right?
18 years in this era. It's incredible.
And I have to ding. This is a joke, by the way. I have to ding Justin Verlander because, listen, he lost Game 1 of the World Series to Anthony Reyes. Okay,
yes, he did.
No, I'm just kidding. He's been great, and he was a rookie then too. But he was even then a hell of a pitcher. But that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen watching the Cardinals all these years. They had to start Anthony Reyes because of that exhausting NLCS against the Mets, and they didn't have a starter available. And he was a guy who had started some games for them. And Dunk said, I remember talking to Dave Duncan. He said, well, we're going with Reyes. And I said, you are? And he said, well, who the hell else do we have? And I said, well, good point. These other guys can't pitch yet. And he said, listen, we'll make the best of it. He said, between us, I'm hoping we score about 8 or 9 runs. But, you never know what's going to happen. He's got talent. Remember that Anthony Reyes was outstanding in that game. He really was.
Fantastic.
I know. So baseball, right?
Yeah.
Never assume anything.
It is nice, though, with Kershaw. I think that when you look at his history, and I agree with you, not the choke artist that some people like to paint him as in the postseason, but you do look at his postseason record against the Cardinals. I think he's 0-4 against the Cardinals and has an ERA above 6 against the Cardinals in the postseason. So when you look at that history, the Cardinals kind of were his kryptonite in certain instances.
They tormented him. I know those years all run together, so I don't remember his 2013 or 14, but he had that huge lead at Dodger Stadium, and it might have been Game 2. I don't think it was Game 1, but it could have been. He had a huge lead. Grichuk hit a home run, and Carpenter was shooting doubles all over the place. and the Cardinals came back on him. That's when Carpenter and Gritchick and other guys just started hitting. But he gave up a huge lead, and I think that's the one that sticks with him. One of the more dramatic moments in Cardinals history during this era, was when Matt Adams hit that home run off Kershaw to beat him was that Game 5, I think?
Yep.
Game 5. And just and I look at that and I'm like, well, man, you can't let Matt Adams hit a home run off of you. But the thing of it is, Matt Adams had no business hitting a home run off him. I mean, it was a curveball. He hadn't homered on a curveball all season. And again, it's baseball. Weird stuff happens in October. And so he probably didn't throw the curve with as much bite as he wanted. And Adams, for some reason, was looking for it, even though he shouldn't have been looking for it. And boom, the Cardinals are going to the World Series. But I wouldn't blame Kershaw for that. I blame it on the autumn winds. The autumn winds of change, and how, as Tony La Russa once told me, he said, well, you've got to understand something, in postseason, all it takes is one lightning bolt. It takes one lightning bolt. You think you're dead, and then you hit them with a lightning bolt, and then they're reeling. He says, or if you get hit by a lightning bolt, you're like, you freak out. He said it happened to us with the A's in '88, the World Series. Yep. It happened with us in a couple times here. He said, people don't understand. This ain't regular season baseball. It ain't 162. They're short series. You get hit by a lightning bolt, you're done, because it's a short series. And so, Kershaw, I think, represents that more than anything, the fate of October and how cruel it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bernie, the other thing I wanted to touch on with you this morning, Jeff Passan had a great piece about a potential lockout at ESPN.com. And as the Cardinals go about making moves, and even though Bill DeWitt isn't as visible as he was, he's still close to Rob Manfred, and he still knows what's going on with the collective bargaining agreement. And I have determined that as the Cardinals make moves towards that time, December 31st of 2026, when the CBA runs out, I'm going to look at everything from the lens of the CBA ending and there perhaps being a lockout. I think that's a logical way for us as fans to approach the way the Cardinals make moves.
100% agreement. You have to. We don't know what kind of systematic change there'll be. And until you know what the type of systematic change, or systemic, whatever you want to call it, what kind of change there'll be to the structure of, contracts. Will there be a salary cap? Will there be this? Will there be that? It would be silly to, go into any kind of long-term thinking, especially for a team that's rebuilding, which is going to have to watch its money rather carefully the next 3 years, and they will. The Cardinals might be, I don't want baseball to shut down for any amount of time in 2027, but actually, if you're the Cardinals, this ain't a bad time to be in a rebuild, right?
No, it's not.
So, because they can just do their business and not be affected too much by a work stoppage. Although, it's not good PR for any baseball team anywhere if the owners and players can't make a deal. I mean, it's going to be a lot of sore people out there, because that's always been the case.
But here's a number for you. Cardinals projected revenue for this year, $385 million. Or I think it might be 395. Yeah, projected revenue for this year, $395 million. That was before the season, before the drop-off in attendance. But whatever it is, 395, 385, whatever it might be. The Dodgers are paying their players this year. Their cash layout is $508 million. So the Cardinals could spend every penny of the revenue that they're generating, and they'd still be more than $100 million behind the Dodgers payroll.
Their revenue level's not the same. And I know, I can hear it now. I hear you out there. Oh, there he goes, defending Bill DeWitt. I'm not defending anybody. He's always been consistent about what his stance is. Like that, as long as the support is there, we'll keep funneling all of the revenue back into the club based on ticket revenue primarily. And he's always done that. They've kind of stayed in their lane, a bit like their comfort zone for payroll. When they won the World Series both times, the average payroll was like 11.5 for those 2 years. Mm-hmm. They've been in the top 10 a couple 3 times or whatever. but they've usually been in that anywhere from like 11 to say 14, maybe 10th to 14th. And it's true that they counted on that revenue to basically either slide the payroll up or down or a little based on ticket revenue. And I think it's a smart way to run a business. And we have all seen firsthand the kind of trouble you can get into when you do not spend smartly, you spend foolishly. And that's one of the reasons why the Cardinals ranked 22nd in winning percentage over the last 3 seasons. With all due respect to John MOZELIAK, I really very much want to see him be applauded on Sunday for his entire body of work. They have done a terrible job of spending payroll dollars.
Yeah.
My stat that I go to all the time, since 2018, the Brewers have dominated the Central, which means they've dominated the Cardinals, and the Cardinals have outspent them by more than $300 million in payroll.
But the Dodgers have a Brett Cecil on their roster.
They got a bunch of them.
The Brewers never got themselves a Brett Cecil or an Andrew Miller.
No. And that's why the whole Hein Bloom thing interests me, because when they hired him, man, I was getting jammed by people on my videos and elsewhere, just like, oh, great, what have they ever won? And I'm like, well, you do know that basically every year the Hein Bloom worked there, and even now they've been like 27th, 28th, 29th, or 30 in payroll, right? You do know that in 2019 they won 96 games and nearly knocked off the Yankees. Won 96 games with the 30th ranked payroll. People equate. I don't know what it is where people think the more you spend, especially a mid-market team like St. Louis, the more you spend, the more you're going to win. You have to spend to win. No, you have to spend wisely to win. You can't spend stupidly. Then you won't win. And they've been doing too much stupid spending. Tampa Bay has been to the same number of World Series as the Cardinals and the Yankees since 2008. And yet there are people in our community who somehow think the Cardinals hired some loser because Tampa Bay's never won a World Series. Tampa Bay shouldn't even be anywhere near a World Series or the postseason for that matter.
Right.
Yeah.
And they would have won if they wouldn't have taken Blake Snell out.
That's right. That's right.
I wanted to ask, because I see some people discussing this in the chat, because we're talking about the salary cap and floor. If there was one that you had to pick that would be most beneficial to baseball with this work stoppage, which would you pick?
Well, I'm conflicted because I don't think there's a need for a salary cap. However, if baseball wants to balance it out a little bit, I mean, we have seen how well a salary cap works in the NFL, and the NFL should be the standard for any professional sports league, because whether we like Roger Goodell and some of his cronies or not, that's not really the point. They have like the perfect model. And the players continue to get more and more and more money. In other words, the football players get a huge share of the total revenue, and it works. And I think the only fair way to do this, though, is not to choose one or the other. You put both in at the same time. I mean, some people say, well, it's un-American to have a salary cap. That's a whole different discussion. We're talking about baseball, and I do think it's overstated that, you can't compete unless you spend a lot of money. Milwaukee doesn't spend a lot of money. Tampa Bay doesn't spend a lot of money. Cleveland doesn't spend a lot of money. There's all kinds of franchises that do not spend tons of money, and they do quite well. But the problem with baseball is, like, you've got guys like that. I was going to use some bad words. That guy in Pittsburgh who takes the baseball equivalent of like basically a welfare check every year and doesn't put it back in his team. And despite all this young, great starting pitching they have, those guys will never win because the owner is he's the blockade. He's the guy, he's the obstacle. And he's getting welfare checks from the other owners. Now, if you're one of the other owners, why in the world would you want to continue to subsidize a guy who does not give one damn about winning and is blatant in the fact it's like, okay, thank you for the money. Well, aren't you going to put that back in your team? I don't know. We'll see. And he doesn't. Why would you want to subsidize him? and there are others like him. The guy that's moving the A's to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Why would you want to subsidize him?
The only reason you would, Bernie, and I've talked to people in the organization about it, and I've never been told I'm wrong. And it's different when your team is good, like the Cardinals were for such a long time. But the Cardinals didn't mind because they were actually the way they looked at it was they were buying victories. Pittsburgh was so bad that they were paying money, and you knew every year that if you played the Pirates 18 times, that you were going to beat them a dozen, and maybe go 12-6, 13-5 against them. So the Cardinals didn't mind it when they were buying victories, but it's a different story now.
It is. But no, a salary floor's got to be with it. But I think it's, I'm not anti-cap at all. Some of my dear friends who are baseball analysts, who I think are some of the smartest people around, like Joe Sheehan. Like if you mention the word salary cap to him, if he were in the same room right now and I say, oh yeah, I don't have a problem with salary cap, he would be lunging across my desk to start choking me. That's how adamant he's against the salary cap.
Here's the thing, and I've got a list here. Let me grab my list. But as I do, I will tell you that a salary cap includes a share of revenue. So right now, baseball players are getting roughly 43% of the revenue that baseball generates. Hockey, basketball, football, the players are getting 50% of the revenue that the sport generates. That's what would happen in baseball if they would have a salary cap and a salary floor. It's the rising tide lifts all boats scenario.
I agree with you.
It's the powerful players, 10% of the players making 72% of the money, basically the Scott Boras clients that are so stridently against a salary cap, and because they think that it's going to help them. Okay, here's a statistic for you. This is earlier in the summer. Highest paid player in American sports was Shohei Ohtani at $70 million. Okay. Number two, this is AAV. Joel Embiid at $64 million. NBA's Tatum at 62.7, NBA's Curry at 62.5, Dak Prescott at 60, Giannis at 58, Anthony Davis at 58.4, Jaylen Brown at 57, Dame Lillard at 56, Jimmy Butler at 55, Jokic at 55, Adebayo at 55, Karl Anthony Towns at 55, Devin Booker at 55, Allen at 55 million, Josh, Trevor Lawrence at 55 million. I'm not seeing any baseball players here. Joe Burrow at 55 million, Jordan Love at 55 million, Tua is making $53.1 million, Jared Goff at 53 million, Paul George at 52.8, Justin Herbert at 52.5, Lamar Jackson at 52 million, Jamal Murray at 51.9, Jalen Hurts at 51. Then you get to Juan Soto at $51 million. You had all those players between Ohtani and Soto that were involved in cap situations. I can't imagine that another baseball player wouldn't look at that list and say, hey, why are all those quarterbacks on 53-man rosters making a hell of a lot more than I am?
No, that's right. And that's been one complaint by players that have had the courage to express it and go against the wishes of Scott Boras or other agents, and Max Scherzer gets mad at him and all that. But it's true. Baseball's so-called middle class would benefit greatly by this. You wouldn't have, you wouldn't have good players waiting almost until the start of spring training before someone offers them a much lower deal than perhaps they're worth. For example, I mean, this is just one example because it's a local example. I mean, for Phil Maton to have to scrounge around, and sign for $2 million, which is for all of us that's a lot of money, not for a Major League Baseball player of his level of experience. He's got to scrounge around and basically hope someone throws him, metaphorically speaking, a bone. Based on what he should be making. I mean, that's an example of it right there. A guy like Phil Maton, he should be having to scrounge for a job. A guy can pitch that well in a bullpen. And there's a bunch of examples like that. And by the way, that's also where Chaim Bloom is going to be really effective for the Cardinals, because Chaim Bloom will be able to find those value signings. He'll be very good at it. Not just him, with Rob Cerfolio and all these people that he's bringing in, and he's bringing in more. And the other thing, Keith Law, who's well connected, told me about Chaim Bloom. He said one thing the Cardinals are doing they're putting in a bigger emphasis. They think Heimblum believes that this is a big deal. You have to do this. The Cardinals are beefing up their pro scouting department.
Mm-hmm.
They're not only, redoing the minor leagues, and man, there are so many smart people that have been brought in on that end. But Heimblum he respects scouts, whether you want to call them old school or not. He thinks there's a lot of value in what they do. And, apparently he doesn't think the Cardinals have put enough into that area, but he's going to change that. I like that a lot.
That's why Tampa Bay loved Randy Arozarena, because of their pro scouts, right? The people that were watching the minor leagues. So that was a big thing. By the way, Bernie, as I was giving those salaries, you might have noticed that I hesitated when I said Anthony Davis. Brooke?
Because you're used to street clothes. Street clothes. That's what he goes by.
That's what was written down, was street clothes.
It's pretty good. Oh man. I hope that if they shut it down, it's going to be brief, but I'm like you, and I'm like most people. If you did a poll, I'm sure about 85-90% of baseball fans would say, yeah, we're going to miss some, there'll be some games lost. And there's probably a lot of doom and gloom people too, but I always think, they got the All-Star game scheduled for Wrigley Field, and, Manfred and all those people and the networks all love Wrigley Field. And, and I know if they lose the whole season, they would put the next year's game at Wrigley Field. But, if they miss a couple of months, believe me, I'm not saying that's good. And I think it'll be particularly harmful to the Cardinals, who are already going to be hard pressed to sell more tickets.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you come back and all of a sudden, you're playing the All-Star game at Wrigley Field and everyone's celebrating baseball. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I wish I had reasons to be really optimistic. No one's presented any reasons that makes me optimistic about avoiding this.
I'm with you. It is always great to see you on a Friday, Mr. Miklas. This is fun. So you got the 2 TV setup going tomorrow night for both Illinois and Mizzou?
I think Illinois' got an early game.
I thought they were 6:30.
Wait a minute. Oh, don't tell me that. You ruined my plans. Yeah,
is that right?
No,
6:30 on NBC for Illinois.
I don't know why I read that wrong, but I don't really map it out until Saturday morning anyway.
Oh, okay.
But no, I have in my cave. It's not a cave; it's a lair. My home office where I'm sitting now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a pretty big TV in here. I also have a tablet. I also have my laptop. So I'll have basically 3 monitors going at the same time. And awesome. I managed to keep up with most of it. There's an occasional Saturday night like this one, and even last weekend where there were a lot of games I wanted to watch. So, and then I ride it out and watch games late at night too, including ones that I missed earlier. And I can fast forward through some areas. But I believe in watching a lot of games. I want to know what's going on. I'm also a Heisman Trophy voter for a long time, and I just look, man, if you have a vote on that, you better honor it by taking it seriously, and you better watch as many players as you can, Yeah,
it's amazing to me. And I get that some people are on the road and they just can't see a lot of games,
right?
But you do have the ability, especially with the internet now, there's only 10 guys that you're going to be watching anyway at the beginning of the season. So you make sure that you know what those guys are up to.
And this is a related note. One of the things in my video yesterday about Mizzou, I raised hell about is Mizzou's accomplishments over the last 3 seasons have been overlooked. They were downgraded, and I'm not sure why. Why? Because they have one of the best records factually in college football over that time, and it gets better all the time. And so after back-to-back double-digit win seasons, and they go into this year with a really great transfer portal on the roster, and a lot of players coming back, and a coach who's really good, and 2 coordinators who are really good. Please tell me how a team that went into the year with their head coach at 19-19 and hasn't done a damn thing really since Urban Meyer left. How in the world was Florida going into the second week of the season ranked 13th in the AP poll, and Mizzou is not in the top 25.
I wonder how much of that, Bernie, is a product of recruiting rankings.
I mean, maybe so, but isn't people got to pay more attention to the transfer portal rankings because he's way up there every year. Yeah, it's just amazing and I was trying to find these numbers really quick, but I know we got to go. But
here, why is Notre Dame 0-2? It's perception, right? Or why is Notre Dame ranked at 0-2? I think the first ever 0-2 team to be ranked, but it's because perception is there.
Yeah. It's the brand name, and people are hung up on, or they vote for helmet decals.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, why? I love college football. It's one of the reasons why I left the Post-Dispatch, because I wanted to watch college football every Saturday. But I don't understand. There's like a cult mentality or something. Like if there's a program that was like dominated in the 50s and 60s, they still get the benefit of the doubt in these polls. And it's like, why? Why was South Carolina, ranked, I think they started out 10th in the nation. Then they went to, they were 13th last week. Now they're out altogether. Well, if you all thought South Carolina was all that, and they're not, then why would you boot them? You're contradicting yourself and showing how vapid and shallow you are, because they lost a game to a Vandy team that's actually really good. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, boom, they're gone. They're kicked out of the top 25. And you say, well, okay, but then the other thing that irritates me about that is, like, one of the reasons South Carolina got kicked out of the 25 is because Vandy beat them. And these clowns still don't recognize that they were really good last year and they're even better this year. But, oh my gosh, they lost to Vandy. They have to. Vandy's good. Why don't you clowns pay attention?
And I think that's what Mizzou runs into. And Brooke knows Vandy and Tennessee very well. I think that the perception is, despite the two back-to-back 10-win seasons for Missouri, 10-plus win seasons, I think the perception out there is, they're Missouri, they can't be that good. And I think that's the perception about Vandy too. It's all perception.
Vandy's been bad. Vandy's been bad, and also it's hard to recruit in Vandy. I think the only thing I could think of, Bernie, when you're bringing up that question is something that is not in Eli Drinkwitz's control, but when you have like a UMass on the schedule and then the way that played out, I think maybe that is something. Mm-hmm. Having an SEC team travel to UMass, that probably didn't help out that much. But I feel like it's just that perception of, it's like Mizzou is still kind of like the stepchild of the SEC. And I like how Eli Drinkwitz, though, embraces it in a lot of ways. He uses that to fuel his guys.
I found this. If you remind me sharing this, do we have a minute or two?
Oh, we got a minute.
Since the start of the 23 season, and this includes last weekend's games too. The only teams in the Power Four plus Notre Dame, the only teams that have won more games than Mizzou overall: Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Penn State, and Michigan. Next comes Ole Miss and Mizzou, both tied with 24 wins. So Mizzou is tied for 7th in the nation for most wins since 2023. Well, what about winning percentage? There are three teams. The teams that rank 1, 2, and 3: Oregon at 903, Ohio State at 875, Georgia at 871. You know who's next? Mizzou and Ole Miss at 828 winning percentage. Wow. Only three teams in the freaking nation, power football, have a better winning percentage than Mizzou over the last 2+ seasons. Mizzou's got a better winning percentage over the last since the start of 23. Better winning percentage than Texas, Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Bama, LSU, Washington, Clemson, Oklahoma, USC. But they're not good enough to even be ranked before the season at 25 or 24 or 23.
Amazing.
And they were picked to be 12th in the SEC. Like, what is that based on? You don't like their helmet decal, or No, I know what it is. It's what you said. There's a snobbery that still exists. Yeah. And one longtime SEC guy told me, because I said, "What's your theory on this?" He says, "Well, don't get mad at me. he said, but there's a lot of people down here that think Mizzou doesn't even belong in the SEC. And I said, even now, yeah, they're like, well, they shouldn't be in here anyway, And it's just bizarre. It's just bizarre. And, to my friends in the South, like the SEC snobs that think Mizzou's beneath their standards or whatever, dudes and dudettes, right? We are a bona fide red state, okay? I mean, don't look at us like we're some blue state or whatever, we're not Yankees up here, right?
We are in the SEC, no doubt about
it. That's right. I told a story, when I went to Dallas, right, to work, there was this real old sports writer there who was a character, and I loved him. And he said, son, where are you from? I said, well, I came from St. Louis. He said, I ain't talking about St. Louis. Where were you born and raised? I said, Maryland. And he said, well, you're a Yankee. And I said, well, what do you mean I'm a Yankee? I said, if you want to get technical about it, I was born and raised below the Mason-Dixon line. So that makes me a Southerner. He said, is Maryland below the Red River? I said, well, no. He says, well, you're a damn Yankee then. Anything north of the Red River, that makes you a Yankee. And I said, okay, all right, I got you. All right. So no, but that attitude is out there still a little bit anyway.
And Bernie, I always try to retort with this. Mizzou's played in 2 SEC championship games. Mississippi State's played in 1. South Carolina's played in 1. Texas has played in 1. Kentucky, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt have yet to make an appearance in the SEC championship game. So Missouri has more SEC championship game appearances than Kentucky, Ole Miss, A&M, and Vandy combined.
But yet a percentage of football experts and fans in the South look down at Mizzou.
Yeah. So maybe they should look down at Mississippi State. By the way, as many combined Mizzou has, and I'm not even going to count Texas and Oklahoma, but Vandy, A&M, Ole Miss, Kentucky, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Missouri has as many championship game appearances as all those schools combined.
What are they doing in the SEC?
That's a good question, Bernie.
and you notice too, Mizzou detractors even now point out, well, I mean, they beat Central Arkansas and they beat Louisiana. Have you taken a look around? All the power conference teams have had at least 2 cupcakes so far.
Yeah.
So why is Mizzou being singled out?
Yeah. Well, here, Bernie, to that point, Illinois beat Western Illinois 52-3. They went to Duke. Give them credit for that.
Right.
And beat Duke 45-19. I don't know if that's a whole lot different than beating KU. And then they win it against Western Michigan 38-0. So it's Western Illinois, Duke, and Western Michigan for the Illini. And for Mizzou, it was Central Arkansas, KU, and they beat last week. They kill
Louisiana.
So basically the same schedule. But Illinois is ranked 9th. So
that's interesting. Maybe I think they looked at that squad's so experienced and they love the quarterback. He was established. I think some people weren't sure what to make of Pavula, and I kind of get that. I get that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't blame anyone for saying, well, chances are he'll be pretty decent, pretty solid, but we don't know. No one really knows how he's going to throw the ball. That's a legitimate point of view before the season.
But to that point, Texas was number 1 with Arch Manning, and Ohio State was number 2 with a guy that had never played before in Julian Sayin. So it's because those teams have done it before. It doesn't matter what their quarterback has done in the past. I had as many questions about Julian Sayin as I did about Bo Prabula, but they were ranked number 2 in the country. And not that they shouldn't have been number in the top 10 because they had a lot of other good players. But if we're going to just base it on questions about quarterbacks, pretty much everybody in the top 10 had a question about their quarterback this year, except for Penn State and Illinois.
Right. And that's a good point. There's been a lot of change because quarterbacks don't stay. They're not there for 4 or 5 years. They're the rare exception. They're the exception these days. But college football is great.
It's awesome.
And people always ask me, what do you think about the NIL? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Conference real? I said, I don't care. I don't pay attention to it. When it's time to kick off, I'm like, okay, well, which games are on? And then I'm excited. I just, if what's the point of sitting and like fretting and stewing and bitching about all the changes in college football? You either love to watch the game or you don't. I don't blame people.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It really is. Well, listen, I love both of you. Brooke, it's great to see you. And, you go from from taking care of a baby at home, and now you've got to take care of this baby at STL Sports Central. So anyway.
Thanks,
It's great seeing you, Bernie.
You all have a great weekend.
See you, brother. Love you too. Take care. That's the great Bernie Miklasz with us.
Oh man,
Randy Karraker
scream
Show.
potato, as I said.